To start the session, I invite Mr. H.M. Hinanaka Bandar, the session chairman and the vice president of CMA Sri Lanka, to commence the session.
Thank you, Danika, for the brief introduction. Good morning to all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that we had a very productive inauguration session which will be useful to all of you, whether you are in the manufacturing or service sector. Eminent speakers shared their knowledge on what measures to be taken or rather implemented to achieve the desired expectation for the benefit of all stakeholders and society at large. In this session, three experts will focus on three different areas. CMA Dr. Ashish from the Institute of Cost Accountants of India will speak on how the Indian industry is adopting cost accounting standards for improving business performance, efficiency, and effectiveness, which is a very important area in the context of Sri Lanka, as you have already heard. Mr. Tiral Roj, one of our Cost Accounting Board Committee members, will speak on the impact of societal costing framework on the pricing of goods and services. And Professor Abhay Singh, Faculty of Management and Finance, University of Colombo, will speak on activity-based costing and its application in practice. Ladies and gentlemen, it is commonly accepted that the end objective of every business is to drive revenue and increase profitability by increasing sales or reducing cost so that a business can continuously grow even in turbulent times. However, businesses should aim to reduce cost and achieve cost efficiency to be more competitive in the marketplace, irrespective of the size and nature of the business. At the same time, the level of cost efficiency in many organizations keeps changing, as there is always a scope for improving the quality of a process, product, or service. But the meaning of cost efficiency, of efficacy, focuses on achieving predetermined objectives within set parameters related to cost. If the business can achieve the set objective within the set cost, the decision is tagged as cost-effective. However, the most cost-effective solution need not be the most suitable cost-efficient method for an organization. Since we are a little bit behind the program, I will confine to very few, one or two comments. So with those remarks, let me now invite the first speaker, CMA Dr. Ashish, to deliver his speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Hinanaka Bandara sir, chairman of the session, dignitaries on the dais and off the dais. I have been given a task to speak about cost accounting standards. And in India, we use cost accounting standards in a very robust way because we have been following cost accounting standards. All cost accountants in the country follow cost accounting standards, which are issued till date. So there are about 24 cost accounting standards which has been issued. And I would like to express today that how these cost accounting standards, that is the standardization in costing, helps government, helps companies, and also helps the practicing cost accountants to determine the cost and take, of course, decisions on the basis of those standards. So my friend Neeraj Joshi has already shown you, already displayed to you the format of cost sheet, so that I am not going to repeat here. But if you recall what was there in the format of cost sheet, which is comprises of various elements of cost. So those elements of cost, each and every element of cost, we have a cost accounting standard. And that standard will talk about how to calculate the cost and how to assign the cost to the product. So ultimate aim of any cost accounting system, besides whatever other aims which a cost accounting system has, the ultimate aim of any perfect or a good cost accounting system is to calculate the correct product cost. So ultimately what we have to do, if you calculate the correct product cost, then there will be a lot of impact of that correct product cost, the accurate product cost. How and why that also I'll explain to you. So with this background, let me start a little bit about our institute, the Institute of Cost Accountants of India. Earlier we were known as the Institute of Cost and Works Accountants of India. And we were established on 20th May 1959 under the Act of Parliament. And it's only recognized statutory professional organization and licensing body in India, specializing exclusively in cost and management accountancy. So there are many cost and management accountancy global institutions, those who are also operating in India, but we are the only licensing authority in cost and management accountancy established under an Act of Parliament. So under this institute, we have our council, elected council, and this elected council has various departments or the various boards under which we function. And one of the important board which we have is the Cost Accounting Standards Board. So of course, Neeraj Joshi, my friend, is heading that board this year. So what we have done is, as a Cost Accounting Standard Board, we have a lot of functions under CASB, popularly we call it as a CASB, Cost Accounting Standard Board. And one of the important function is to review the cost accounting standards, whatever has been issued till date. As what I told you, 24 standards has been issued till date. We also come up with n number of times various advisories on various costs. So for example, when COVID came, March 2020, India was completely under lockdown. So our Cost Accounting Standard Board came up with advisory on how to calculate the costs of COVID. Because there were a lot of costs which companies were incurring on account of COVID. Because we were not able to find any solutions in the cost accounting standard, how to deal with those costs, maybe huge costs which were there. So we tried to identify, we tried to issue the advisory to the companies that how they will impact your product cost by way of calculating those COVID-19 costs, popularly known as advisory on COVID-19 cost. Also, the function of Cost Accounting Standard Board is to issue guidance note from time to time, because we have issued standards. Standards talk about what is the assignment of the cost, how will you apportion the cost, how will you calculate the cost. Everything has been given in the standard. But standards are nothing but principles or the rules which has been framed. And under those rules, ultimately the practices has to happen. So what is important is amongst the standards is to issue the guidance note, because standards are rough words or the clear principle rules which are there. But under that, if there are any examples which has to be given, those examples are given under the guidance note. So we have issued about, I think, 8 to 10 guidance note also, that also slide I have. So you can go through those standard, you can go through those guidance note as well. Most importantly, all these cost accounting standards, guidance note, all kind of advisories, everything is available on our institute website. So you can go to ICMAI.in website, and there is a separate page for the Cost Accounting Standard Board. Under that, download tab is given. So you can download all the standards, all 24 standards, you can download guidance note, etc. Everything you can download. So I have briefly mentioned about it, that how our standards are formalized. So see, what happens is costing is purely based on various principles, that how will you deal with various costs. So for example, administration cost, for example, finance cost, employee cost. So all these costs has certain principles that how will you treat these costs into the various products or services, whatever you produce or sell, calculating the total cost, and finally to calculate the profit of that product. But what happens is all these principles needs to be finally converted into rules. Those rules are nothing but those cost accounting standards which we have issued. We have generally accepted cost accounting principles also. So from principles, we draw the rules. And with these rules, we practice in industry. So while calculating the cost, we do a lot of calculation of the cost and then assign the same to the product. But many a times, a new type of cost comes, or many a times a new kind of a treatment of a cost comes, which we don't find any answers in the principles or the rules. But in practice, we do it something which is differently. So what happens is, it's a continuous process. So when that kind of a cost comes, we will have to make some changes in the principles also. So we modify the principles. So we modify the rules. So then again we practice. Then after 10 years, 20 years, we again find that possibly this cost treatment is not correct, or possibly we need to change now with the new cost which has come up. We again challenge our principles, we again change our rules and so on and so forth. So for example, in IFRS, there is a specific accounting for the lease. So what is the lease nowadays, how lease is to be calculated in IFRS, is it talks about calculation of lease which is having on the future value basis. It is not just the current value basis, it is on the future value basis. Whereas the costing principles doesn't allow you to have the future value basis, because my valuation can't change every time. Every year, valuation of a lease can't change. So whatever is my actual cash outlay, I have to consider that cash outlay as my lease cost or as my total cost, which should affect my product or service, which should be absorbed in my product or service. I can't change valuation every year. So after IFRS came, we realized that possibly in practice, what we do is not what is been written in the principles or the rules. So we modified those rules or those things in 2017. We came up with some new rules, or some modification in the rules has happened in 2017 by way of guidance note, and then we came up with those changes. So my point is, this is the continuous circle, and this has been followed by most of the regulating authorities to change their rules, challenge their principles, ensure that these principles and rules are well practiced, and so on and so forth. So this is the circle of the cost accounting standards. So why cost accounting is needed? Only 1 minute I'll take. So most important, as what I told you, that the ultimate aim of any costing system is to accurate calculation of product cost or a service. Because unless I know what is the correct or the accurate cost of a product or service, I won't be able to price it. And ultimately, when it comes to a costing, cost is nothing but we call it as a cost pool, P-O-O-L pool. So ultimately, the total cost of that pool has to be allocated to various products. So if I allocate less cost to a one product, doesn't mean that this product is benefited, my other product is impacted, and my other product gets the higher cost. So point is to have all the cost accounting standards in the place that should help me to calculate the cost accurately as well as uniformly throughout the country. So cost structure helps effective strategy management, then accurate cost allocation for product pricing, that is one of the importance of cost accounting. Enhancing financial performance through cost control, because ultimately, whatever, unless you measure, you cannot manage. So what is most important is you have to measure what is your cost, you have to measure what is your profit and sales, and then once you start measuring it, then only you manage it. So for example, we go to a doctor, we go to a pathological lab. Why we go to pathological lab? Because we want to measure what are our criticals. So unless you know what are your criticals, you won't be able to manage. So when you go to a doctor, he immediately sends you to a pathology lab. He tells you that you first measure, then we manage. Same case with the company. So unless you measure, you won't be able to manage. Then also, informed decisions to support the investment appraisal. So costing is not just meant for the product costing. To have the investment appraisal, you should also have the informed decisions, because ultimately correct costing or the accurate costing will help you to take the correct decisions and as well as investment appraisal. And of course, in the project management, costing has an immense utility. If you go to institute website, we have a specific, for example, real estate sector, one of the important in the project management which is there. So how to calculate the cost for those real estate sector, we have specific formats which has been derived, which you can see it from the institute website. Now I'll come to this point, a very important point, which I am saying right from the beginning, that what is the need of calculation of the correct cost. So example of product A, whose actual cost is rupees 100, but you have calculated it as 50. So what will be the impact of that? The impact of that, of course, there is a cash loss, because you have calculated this product cost as 50, you will sell it at 60 or maybe at 70, but your actual cost is coming out to be 100. So that means you are actually losing the money. So that is a cash loss which I have. And there will be one more problem, and that there will be pressure to reduce the selling price as well, because the selling prices are quite high in that case. So there will be pressure to reduce the selling prices, and no control over cost, because you will be very happy that you are getting sales at that price. But the reverse case is more dangerous. People think that, my actual cost is 100, but I wrongly calculated at 150, so that's okay. I mean, I've calculated it 150 wrongly, so that's okay. I can sell it at 160, I can sell it at 170, so I'll get more money out of it. But that's not the case, because this will remain only as a short-term profits. You might get 1 customer, 2 customer, 100 customers for a short period of time. They will come to and buy from you, but there is always a fear of losing the market, because any other company, your competitor, who is calculating those costs correctly, will also price it correctly. So if their cost is coming out to be 100, they will price it at 120, you are selling it at 170. So there will always be a pressure on your selling team. There is always be a fear of losing the market, and you will always form the wrong strategies because you got the wrong cost calculated. So again, my point which I am trying to make is calculation of correct cost as per costing principle is very much needed. And for that purpose, what helps you is the cost accounting standard. I hope this is readable. Yeah. So Institute of Cost Accountants of India has issued total 14 cost accounting standards. So if you go through right from the cost accounting standard 6, so 6 onwards, material cost, employee cost, utility, packing, direct material, admin, repair, service cost center, pollution control cost, selling and distribution overheads, depreciation, interest, research, joint cost, royalty, quality control, manufacturing cost. So all these elements of cost we have covered in our cost accounting standards, and we have tried to give certain principles that how will you calculate all this cost. So those basis of assignment and apportionment has been given in those costs. It is freely available on the institute website, which you can go. Then we have overburden removal cost, because in India we have a lot of big coal industries. So to get the coal, you have to remove the overburden from the coal, and then only you start getting the coal. So what to do with that huge cost which is been incurred, so that is also been covered. And then finally the treatment of revenue in the cost statement. So how will you calculate the revenues if, especially if there are future revenues, current revenues, etc. So everything has been given. That is from 6 to 24, and 1 to 5 were our old costs, wherein, which are not related to a specific element of a cost. But first one talks about classification costs. Cost accounting standard 2 is one of the best documents which has been created by the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, because it has been revised 2-3 times. And there is a lot of input which we get from industry on how to calculate various types of capacities. So what is installed capacity, what is the license capacity, what is normal capacity, what is idle capacity, what is normal idle capacity, etc. etc. So all these terms which we use in the day-to-day life for the corporates, especially for the manufacturing, we all consider those. Everything has been calculated through capacity determination cost accounting standard. You definitely go through that cost accounting standard 2. That will give you a lot of good insights about it. Then we have production and operation overheads, because there are a lot of overheads, and those overheads needs to be calculated. Every overhead has a separate assignment, etc. So those needs to be calculated separately. So all those principles has been given in cost accounting standard 3. And fourth, cost accounting standard 4 is something which is most importantly, which even industry uses it very extensively, and government also has a lot of use of this cost accounting standard 4. How, that I'll tell you later on. But cost accounting standard is for the cost of production or for the captive consumption, because there are many places wherein goods are transferred for the captive consumption. So I have a unit, because India is a bit larger country, so I have a unit on the, say, western coast, and I'm transferring my goods to a eastern coast. I mean, that's my captive consumption. I'm not selling it to someone else, but it's a transfer from my one factory, one unit to another unit. So this is how this is where the role of cost accounting standard 4 comes, that how will you calculate the cost of manufacturing. And there are issues related to taxation also, because these goods movement, when they move from one place to another place, they are very much free to have whatever selling price you decide, but that means when industries are free to decide their selling price, or to have a notional price, notional selling price which they give, because it's an inter-unit transfer, it's not from one company to another company. So there are always losses of taxation as well. So government also wants us, that is the cost accounting professionals, to calculate what is the exact cost of captive consumption. So this is the example of inter-unit transfer, but there can be within the unit also there are internal consumptions. So if required, the calculation of those consumption can also be calculated through CAS 4. So let me take you through 3 examples, or a small type of, or rather 2 small type of case studies, and one live example of how government is utilizing services of cost accountants through cost accounting standard, and how it helps the Indian industry. So this example I've taken from typically a pharmaceutical industry, and this company wants to calculate how much is their install capacity, how much is their normal capacity utilization, and by having their normal capacity utilization, they want to show this to the management, or whatever decision making, they want to ensure that their capacity utilization also increases. So whatever things they want to do it with those numbers, of course, as what I told you, as an accountant, my job is to calculate, measure, and give it to management for their decision making purposes. So if you see this table which is in front of you, so this table this table is having all the 10 products which are there. And these 10 products are, there is some consumption for these 10 products. So standard reaction time per batch, so that is what the total hours which has been given for each product. Total batch size in number of vials or number of tablets or whatever you call it. Then we have total actual production which is given. And then for actual, what has happened is, this is a standard production, or the standard hours which are required for each and every product which has been given. But what has happened actually, that is also been given. So for my A product, there are 28 number of batches which I have taken. So that means 28 into 36, I have spent total 1008 hours to produce product A in pharmaceutical industry, that specific industry. I require total in a year 1008 hours. You forget the percentage in front of that currently. I'll come back to that later on. So in a way, for B 170, for C 224, and so on and so forth. Correct? So in totality, number of hours which I worked, as in a full year, the number of hours which I worked is 8081. That's the total number of hours which I worked, out of 14,832 hours available. 14,832 hours available. Now, how I have arrived at 14,832 hours, that is given in the table below, which says number of days in a year 365, that's a standard. Less maintenance downtime I removed. Less product changeover for 10 products, that also I removed. Then some cleaning time based on my previous year experience I removed. So what I get is number of days available during the year. So that comes out to be 309. Then number of hours available for each line. So I'm considering that I'm working all 24 hours. So all the 3 shifts in India, we work in 3 shifts of 8 hours. There are many companies, those who might be working 2 shifts, those who might be working 1 shift, depending upon their total sales requirement which are there. So that means in total number of hours available for each line. Now I have 2 lines. So each line is 7416, and number of hours available for 2 lines is 14,830. So this number, you can relate it to the table above, just bottom, 14,832. So my total capacity utilization my normal capacity utilization is 54.28%. So this is what, now this I have not calculated on my own. This I have calculated with the principles which has been written in Cost Accounting Standard 2, right? So my total capacity utilization has come out to be 54.28%. So this number is very much useful at various levels. This number is useful for management. This number is useful for government. This number is useful for academicians, researchers also, that how much is the capacity utilization as such. So, so below also this calculation has been made, 54.28%. So this is how we calculate the total capacity utilization in terms of percentage. So that's my first example of the case which I would like to present. Then, now this Cost Accounting Standard 4 is a very, very live example, because once I go back to India tomorrow, day after tomorrow, I have a job to sign my Cost Accounting Standard 4 certification. So this is live example which I worked in Sri Lanka just before coming to this place. So this is for your reference. Of course, I have not given you the name of the company. So this is the, if you see on the left-hand side, what is it clear? So if you see on the left-hand side, we have elements of cost. Unlike a cost sheet, in Cost Accounting Standard 4, we calculate, so we calculate up to the cost of production, and we add a notional margin of 10% to finally calculate what is the assessable value, because this case is from the non-taxable region transfer to the taxable region transfer. So one company having two units, one at the non-taxable region and another is at the taxable region. So this transfer is between non-taxable to taxable. So what has happened is, for them there is no output tax for the non-taxable region, but they can take the input tax. So to calculate the input tax, because there is no selling price, government wants cost accountants to calculate what is assessable value by this way. So by applying all the cost accounting standards, which has been given as a reference in the Cost Accounting Standard 4, I have calculated these numbers, and this is not just for the company as a whole. So you can see I have calculated it for all the products of this company. Don't know how many products, right? So many number of products for which I have calculated. And one of the important thing which I have been doing in this is, whatever cost which is there, I am allocating this cost either to the administration, works overheads, or maybe to quality control and R&D. So all this cost I am transferring, all this cost I am allocating to a specific head by applying the cost accounting standards. Correct? So this is how we will calculate the cash flow. This is how we will calculate the assessable value, and then ultimately it will be submitted to the government. It is also useful for the company, because this unit, which is only for the captive consumption, does not have any performance. It does not have any sales. It only sells to its own units, its own company units. So for them, it is easier to calculate what is their cost, and their performance is based on the calculations which has been made by a cost accountant. Correct? Yeah. So these are two examples, the actual numbers which I have shown you. Now this is a very recent office memorandum or a notice which has been issued by the Government of India, Department of Telecommunication. If you go through this, what it says. So how this is recognized in the government also. The cost shall be calculated in accordance with the CAS 4, revised 2018, standards to determine the cost of production of goods issued by the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, and as amendment from time to time. Now what has happened here is, this is very recent, not even about a 1 month old. Now as what we were saying, that government gives a lot of incentives to various industries. So telecommunication is also under part of PLI scheme, that is Production Linked Incentive Scheme. So when government gives incentives to those scheme, it is expected that you will keep cost of the product very low and selling price also very low, so that the benefits of that scheme reaches to the final consumer. It's not been absorbed in between by the company. So to calculate that, there are some captive consumptions. If company already has purchased some equipments, or maybe if certain goods they are manufacturing in-house. So how to calculate those values, or how to calculate that cost? Government has mandated now by this office memorandum that those calculations has to be done by way of cost accounting standard 4. So these are various places at which all our cost accounting standards has been recognized by the government, and it is not just recognized by the government, but it is very much useful also for the management to take further decisions. So since I've been allotted a little bit shorter time, I couldn't cover all the examples, because all cost accounting standards, if you take 24 cost accounting standards, there are a lot of examples which are there. Those who are interested, you can search on YouTube. I have taken lecture series on the cost accounting standard in the past. So you can go through my each and every lecture up to from the standard 1 to standard 24. It is also available on the institute website, or you can search on the Google, YouTube, etc. with my name. Thank you so much.
Dr. Thapte. And now to discuss the impact of societal costing framework on the pricing of goods and services at an affordable price in a transparent manner. So I would like to invite Mr. Thierry Rocher, the CEO of Tibro Capital Private Limited.
Yes, we are still in the morning, I think. Yeah, and though we have gone on time, so I am talking on the subject. Just I'll give you a brief introduction, because I am in the Cost and Management Accounting Standards Board of Sri Lanka, and I was in the technical subcommittee working on introducing standards for this country with the help of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India. And I'm very thankful for their support they have given now for about 4 years, very patiently. But we need your support in the next years also to implement the standards. So we'll be working very closely with you. I also have to remember Mr. Raman, who worked with us in introducing this. And he is not here today, but he did a lot of work. So just want to remind of those things. Because of that only, I'm going to do this presentation today. So we talked about standards right now. So what I'm going to talk about is the societal costing side of it. And we'll see why we should talk about it, this thing. So why do we need this topic right now? So as Professor Vatavela said, and even Mr. Joshi said, there are issues, and like Mr. Ranavir also said, we have issues, complexities, people don't understand, or people are worried, or they have a misunderstanding on the pricing of products like electricity, petroleum, health sector. We see some of the products with very high prices, then they were reduced, people can't afford it, and pricing is not transparent, taxation is changed. So as citizens of this country, they had a lot of issues. So as management accountants, as cost accountants, it is our primary job to clear this, remove the misunderstanding, remove the complexity, and tell these people what is the real issue here. So in that scenario, we developed first to introduce cost accounting standards, a framework. Now this is the framework that we have published from CMA Sri Lanka. I hope all of you have seen it. So if you have not seen it, first thing to do is we circulated to all members. You have to get a copy of this. You can contact us here if you want a copy, we'll send you. But I will inform CMA cell to put it on the website also, so you can download it. So if you go through it, first we have the management accounting principles and all, which you know. I know most of our accountants practice here. They practice the standard costing, absorption, throughput costing. I mean, you all do all of that. But in the service sector or in the public sector is the issue, whether they are doing it correctly. I know they are doing it. They have control accounts. They take all costs in. They have records. They have everything. But whether we are doing it on the proper matter. But if you go to part C of this, we get the societal costing framework. We put the framework because this framework gives how do we address the issues of societal costs, the cost of pollution, the cost of general goods, public sector services and goods. How do we address these things? So that's why this is important, and this is why this is important to give affordable and transparent pricing. So the framework, when we decide this framework, we had some objectives. So if you see the objectives, main one was to give affordable pricing. Number two, to transparent pricing, to have sustainable business practices, to ensure comparability and consistency. Mr. Joshi also said in their cost accounting statements that he prepared, there must be comparability and consistency. That's one of the issues that we had. So this framework decided on that, and to have fair and equitable resource allocation, to reduce inefficiencies, reduce waste. Those are the fundamental things that we wanted from this framework. So even if we don't have standards, you can use this framework as a guidance document to do this thing. As Mr. Ashish said, you can download the standards also. You can use the Indian standards even if you don't have it to prepare your statements on a more accurate manner, because the Consumer Affairs Authority wants statements, and when you go to PUSL, they want statements. So these statements can be prepared. But by using societal costing framework, you go beyond just having the normal cost accounting statements. So what is societal costing? So this is preparing information not at a firm level, but at a national or a macro level. So to be used by the general public, to use by the country. So we are talking about not only a firm, but going beyond that. And it's a foundation of human behavior. So societal costing, you use normal management accounting practices to determine the cost, but you go beyond with your behavior. So as accountants, you are taught on ethics, behavior, corporate governance, sustainability. So you are using those things in addition to the cost accounting information to give a better service to the people of this country. And why do we have to use this? Because the government, as Mr. Ashish and Mr. Joshi both said, they can use this information to correctly price products, affordably priced products. Not only correct, but affordably. Today, the citizens of this country, they have affordability of issue. So not only the correct pricing, affordable pricing, so that people to access to good health care, good education, good electricity, so in a manner that they can use it, and manner that they can understand it. And number two, to get transparency, to get information on how the taxes are used, how electricity is costed, what are the cost of the waste, what is cost of pollution. These things we have to tell the citizens. They have to know. So it is your job to get these things done. So that is part of our objective of this cost conference. So in preparing this framework for societal costings, we had 5 principles and 4 concepts. So as Mr. Ashish said, these will change when the standards are used and practiced. It's a circle. But as at now, our first principle is sustainability. I don't have to explain it. You have to think about the future, and you have to address and comply with the standards in the country that have been there, not only the financial accounting standards, but the standards of reporting, the standards of the people that they require. Second is the principle of conservativeness. This is to reduce or improve efficiency. Even if you have enough resources, you have to use resources effectively and efficiently. That's what we want. So you have ample resources, but whether you are efficiently using that and reducing waste, as management accountants, as cost accountants, it's your job to highlight this. As when I was working in companies, I highlighted these and told them that these are the issues that we have to solve. So your job is to do that. And externality, you have to think on an outward-looking aspect. What are the issues, your firm, what are the costs that you are adding to the economy, to pollution, to other people's affordability of goods and services? What can you do as the management accountant of that company by advising your CEO or the board? How can you address these things? So you have to have the external looking aspect. Then public interest. We talked about minimizing harm to public. So minimizing harm is not only minimizing pollution, it's minimizing the hassle that they have to face, minimizing the cost of healthcare, education, the access to it. Those are the things as a principle you have to think. Then principle of traceability. You must have documented documents that we can verify to address your cost. So if the government wants to price, if the consumer authority wants to know the cost of the product, you must have verifiable, documented evidence. That is a major issue. So most of the companies, private sector, I know they have, but whether SMEs and large public companies, whether they have, is an issue. So that is a problem that we have to address. As management accountants, you will have to look into that. Then entry-specific costs, that means if you are in an entity in a specific industry, your costs must be calculated independently without bringing other costs into your costing systems. Transparency, the relevant users must be able to access the cost accounting records and your company's costing or accounting records to see how you have costed and what are the implications to the to general public to make informed decisions. Then consistency, using same accounting methods across periods so that what you did last year can be compared to this year to make meaningful comparisons. And comparability between industries and between time zones to have correct accounting records that can be comparable over periods or industries so that you can have meaningful conclusions. So those are the principles and concepts that we developed with this societal costing framework. So you can use them with the normal management accounting principles that you use, but going beyond that to make the society a better place for this country. So what do we want you to do with this framework? First one is, if you have not got the framework, please get this and go through it, understand it, and you can use it with the management accounting tools that you know, that you use. You can download and use them, but go beyond. Go beyond just doing management accounting reports. Go beyond, think about the public, think about the affordability, think about transparency, and think about what implications that you have to the environment and the other conditions of this country. Keep cost accounting records and information for verification and audit, very important. Think about the greater good for the public. Think about the country. Think about what you can do to increase affordability and transparency. That is part of what is needed from you. That is what ethics is. Then we have to closely look at reduce super profits, reduce waste, reduce inefficiency, and reduce harm to the environment and the people. As cost accountants, by doing your job, I don't know whether you have thought about it right now, but by doing your job, you can do a lot to this country and the improvement of the accounting function. So that, I think, is a key takeaway for you today. You have to practice this. අද ඉඳලා හරි මේක මේ ප්‍රැක්ටිස් කරන්න ඕන. නිකන් accounts හදලා වැඩක් නැහැ. ඔයගොල්ලෝ හිතන්න ඕන මේ accounts වලින් going beyond accounts හදන්න ඕන and informed decisions ගන්න ඒ accounts හරියට හදන්න. That is what we want from you. ඒක කරන්න නැත්නම් මෙතනට ඇවිල්ලා වැඩකුත් නැහැ. You have to go beyond that. And if you need any information, contact CMASB. We have the team here also. We have Anjani, Premaratna, and executive members of the board. So if you want any further information, any help, we will give it to you to go beyond from what you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. And now I would like to invite Professor AAC Abesingha, the Professor in Accounting, the Department of Accounting, Faculty of Management and Finance, University of Colombo, to discuss the activity-based costing and its application in practice.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the invitation. Actually, Professor Wattawala, the chairman, panelists, and distinguished invitees, I think we are struggling with the time. So I was asked to finish within 20 minutes. So I try to convey my message and my the content within 20 minutes. This is actually about activity-based costing application. Because in theory, we teach, we learn activity-based costing, we do accounting, we do sums, but practically I couldn't see the application of ABC. So then that's why just I wanted to see what's happening. Then I had some opportunities in several organizations. It took, I think, more than 2 years. I think now I finished in one public sector body, it's a regulatory body. And then I also did for the university, Columbia University. And also I applied it for a manufacturing company. It's in a dairy industry. And also at the moment, we are doing for another state's department. Therefore, that means that this ABC can be applied in any situation, whether it's a public sector or private sector, whether it's manufacturing or service, or whether it's regulatory, anywhere. That's what I found. So then I will try to show what I learned from this. So I thought of discussing just actually first a theoretical base. First I know all of you are well aware of ABC, activity-based costing, but sometimes may not be that much clear. So quickly I will give a glance of ABC, then I will say all other points are about my findings, what I found from my studies so far. Studies in the sense my applications. We find it as it depends on the need of the management we will discuss, and its nature is that in introducing or in implementing ABC, it takes a little bit longer time to start, but very enthusiastic end we can see. And I'm going to share with you the output of ABC system, and then outcomes, the users, and a dashboard. It came out in this exercise. We have never seen in any textbook or anywhere, but I found it's very useful for management, a dashboard for costing, and then conclusion. So ABC is a kind of an approach which is focusing on resource consumption. So resources are consumed by activity. That's why activity-based costing is about costing based on resource consumption. But actually it is against the traditional method, that is absorption costing, which is about resource availability, whether we use or not. If the resources are available, if the capacity is there, we have to absorb the cost. But under ABC, we charge only the cost based on the resources consumed. We will see through an example. Then activity-based costing can lead to management applications like ABM, activity-based management, which helps us performance budgeting, target costing, value analysis, consumer profitability analysis, process improvement, and activity improvements, etc. There are various applications we can have, which are very, very important in achieving improvements in business situations. So it's a quick example. I tried to, this is a point, actually as an example, this is from a study in the dairy company. My point is that activity-based costing is needed only basically for overheads. This is a direct cost. Normally in studies we say that direct labor, direct material, etc. But actually even in Japanese accounting, they say only material is direct. I found also same, that is a practice. No point of discussing direct labor, no direct labor to be found anywhere. So it is only material cost. So this is about costing yogurt, but these figures I have totally distorted because it's my duty to not to disclose the facts I found from exercises. Therefore, don't believe raw milk cost per liter is not 258. It's wrong. I changed figures. It's a company. So anyway, the method is visible. We can see for a yogurt, raw material, sugar, full cream, milk powder, gelatin and yogurt culture, etc. They are the ingredients, and we can see different measures, and then prices, the quantities, then different quantities, we have to refer to the batch. That's what we found. Then batch, and then the unit prices are given. Then we can calculate batch quantity. Then per batch, what is the number of cups. Then therefore, accordingly, we find per unit material cost. So that doesn't require any ABC or anything. So therefore, ABC is needed only to deal with overheads. That's the point. So costing means in material, we don't need any ABC or absorption, whatever is not relevant. It's directly, easily applicable. Right, so then overhead, that's the headache. So whether it's absorption costing or whether it's ABC, it's needed only to deal with overheads. Overhead is not visible. Still it is problematic. Nobody knows exactly what is the cost. We don't know what is the electricity cost of this laptop. Nobody knows. Therefore, still we are struggling to find, assign overheads. So ABC is an alternative. So here I'm going to show you a comparison between traditional absorption costing and ABC. So you can see I have just, this is a hypothetical example normally I'm using even for teaching. Like here you can see there are 3 activities: manual cutting, manual heat cutting, chemical cutting, manual finishing. They are different activities, maybe operated within a certain cost center. All 4 activities are operated within one cost center, cutting department. So then these are total hours available, and for each hours available, and the cost, operator cost, etc. So we can, under the traditional method, what we do, we take the total cost, that is 1,260,000, and total hours in the cost center, 630 hours. We divide the total cost by total hours. We come to 2,000 rupees as we call it overhead absorption rate. It's very simple, we all know. But ABC is that these jobs are products. Job ABC, and exactly see what each job requires from different process activities. So then different, for example, job A requires only 6 hours of manual cutting and 5 hours of manual finishing. So then only 11 total hours from only for these 2. See the difference now here, it takes total hours. Therefore, that means it calculates job A is consuming all the activities. Because the total cost is divided by total hours. The job A doesn't require any heat cutting, but absorbs costing. It doesn't require any chemical cutting, but absorbs costing. That is the unfairness of traditional method. So this is a serious thing. So under ABC, therefore, we can see job A total cost becomes 22,000. When you calculate, before that, we have to see manual cutting department, it has 170,000 rupees per month. It has 200 hours available. Therefore, per hour cost becomes 850. So that practically has to be done. Actually, when I was doing in a certain situation, the accountant, is a qualified accountant, he raised a question. No, it's a similar, simple thing. It's like just still absorption costing. You are dividing the cost by a number of hours. But it's different. Difference is that it is based on activities. This is the way we call it even time-based ABC. We take each activity's cost by hours. Therefore, this is the 850 rupees is the per hour cost of manual cutting. Similarly, for each activity, we identify rate. This is called cost driver rate. It is totally different from absorption rate, but seems to be similar, but no. So then on that basis, when we calculate, ABC cost comes to 10,100, 9,850, 17,000. This is the based on exactly the consumption of resources. But the traditional method totally neglects the consumption. Therefore, it is calculating A as 22,000, B 12,000, and C 10,000. So we normally, if you are costing based on traditional method, you are charging for A 22,000. Whereas if you consider real actual resource consumption, it is only 10,100. So then that's the problem. Then we are totally distorting. We are totally misguided by costing. Our prices become totally different and wrong. We are unnecessarily charging our jobs for 10,000 jobs, we are charging 22,000. That's the problem. Therefore, job A overcharged, job B overcharged, job C undercharged. So then this is the problem of traditional costing. Therefore, we have to think. This is very serious. If we are talking about costing, even the accounting standards, we have to consider with this issue. If we go ahead with traditional method, it is totally misleading decisions. So then that's what I think I wanted to point out this theoretically. We do this just in classes. But in practice what I found is that the need of ABC is totally depending on the nature of the situation, management. Because it's alternative, no obligation, you can even on the basis of absorption costing or on any other base, you can calculate costs. Costs are there. Problem is whether they are acceptable. So then, what I found out that this ABC exercise was required by people who are having an understanding. Everywhere in a certain regulatory body, the chairman was a chartered accountant, and then when I met him at a certain occasion, then when I discussed this, he invited me to do it. Then he was very much enthusiastic and very much happy to see this. But then, after a certain political change, the chairman had to go out. Then another chairman came. He didn't want this. We had done it, but it not being implemented because he doesn't mind it. So then that's the issue. So this is alternative. It depends on the personal interest and knowledge and the understanding. So even in that particular organization, director finance was assigned, connected to me. We both were doing, and even the director finance was asking, what is this? He didn't understand what we are doing. But in the middle of the process, he said it's a really useful thing. It's very much important for me. Even I'm struggling with always distributing our budget. Now I can do in a real way. He was so much enthusiastic. But he couldn't continue because the chairman was not interested. Second chairman. Therefore, it totally depends on the interest, knowledge, and understanding. That's what I found. The director of finance was interested because he's a chartered accountant. The chairman was not having any accounting background, not interested. Previous chairman was a chartered accountant, very much interested. Even in another manufacturing company, one was our MBA student. He's a deputy general manager. He invited. Then they were also a little bit having some confusion. Some accountants were questioning. But then later, they were very much enthusiastic. Then even last night, he called me. So they are now asking just to go ahead. So that's what I found. Those who are having a background, they can see the validity. They are interested. Others may not see any use. And what I found was that when you are doing it, operation level people, even managers are very much interested. Because in a regional office, in that particular the regulatory body, we visited, there are some regional centers all over the country. We visited all. Then in one regional office, we found there are 446 activities being conducted. They said, they got surprised. See, so we have never understood this much of activities we are doing, because they didn't know that they were doing. They say, always we are getting blame from the head office that we are not working. See what the work we are doing. So they were so much interested because they can show what they are doing. The other thing is that it becomes a guidance. through the activity-based exercises, all the tasks they handle are coming out. So then they say that now we know what we are doing, now we know what to do. So then that's another the benefit. So they are very much interested. And, but there are resistance coming from some managers who misunderstand and the concept. Sometimes they say, no, this is, they are trying to cut down our maybe benefits. they are interested. There are some resistance coming from some people who are, maybe, I don't know, maybe not doing up to the standard, maybe. And even some hesitant managers, they don't like. But there are many who like it. Then it's a longer beginning, that's what I said. At the very beginning, we have to, because this is totally based on brainstorming. We can't simply do alone. We have to meet each and every like managerial level and sometimes senior worker level in each division to understand activity. Activity identification is a very time-taking work. That's why this is criticized. But that's why in one organization it took more than 1 year to complete, nearly a year, to complete whole activities because there are a number of regional activities. We visited all centers. Then we had to have some cross discussions to come to general idea. That's why I found one regional office conducts 446 activities. That's what we generalized. So therefore, we have to visit we have to study each and every division, stores and even the transport division, finance division, administration division, everything has to be studied. Otherwise, we can't do ABC. And then identifying activity drivers is also it's a subjective thing. We have to really understand the theory. Then we have to practically identify what are the cost drivers. So that can be done, but it's subjective, and we need brainstorming. So then after that, this is that once we have done it, that's all. Then it's very much enthusiastic. We have the base data set. Now we can easily go for calculation. That's why what I found is that maybe we may spend 1 year, but next year maybe some few hours, only to change some activities, maybe their timing. Even we can review and improve timing. Like that, we have to invest maybe nearly a year, but rest is very easy to do budgeting. That's what I found. And then another important is that when we have such output, it's very useful for controlling activities. It shows us whether these activities are needed. That's what it came out. They say, no, you see what things we are doing. Sometimes in some organizations, they are just preparing reports. But they found, how much of a report? Because they didn't know, they knew only the material cost of the report. But in the ABC exercise, they found, oh my God, 16,000 rupees per report. No, please stop that report. They decided in that particular public sector organization. So then there's a statistics department. That's what happened. Like that, through this, they identify what are the various activities being conducted, are they needed. Sometimes we found there are some repetitions, and sometimes unnecessarily documents are transferred from one center to the other, to the head office. Having other facilities, once they see these activities and their cost, they found it has to be revisited and restructured. So that's, I think, I found that's a very useful information came out. So efficiency, etc., identification of redundant waste activities, and it's a path for process improvements because I will show examples. Each activity, when we study the activity, there are various sub-activities we identify. I will show you. Then they can go through what are they. Sometimes they can see, okay, using some network, we can cut down some activities. Like that, some processes. The process is a combination of activities. So process improvements they can do. Let's say, for example, if you take a processing an order, we don't know. But when we look at so many unnecessary things may be there, unnecessary approvals are there. Every approval is a cost. So when we assess it, we can see what are the unnecessary things we are doing, then we can cut down and bring down the cost. Right, so these are my outputs. So this is the cost per cup of yogurt. So on top you can see the material cost, rest is overheads. All the overheads are identified into relevant activities. So engineering activities, energy cost, packing materials, storage cost, QA, yogurt making. So then they will see, even say, for example, if it's QA is, if it is needed, then can we outsource it? Because every cup incurs 34 cents as per the way things are going on. Like that, they can see each and every activity needed for the product and the cost. Therefore, they can see the total cost per cup very clearly. Then they can see the ex-factory price, and these are actual price, these total figures, but these are actuals. What's happening still they are using now. And then contribution per unit can be seen. The contribution here means because actually in that particular organization, they have a factory. They say that the head office has decided to sometimes stop this factory. Why? Because it's incurring a loss. But when we do this exercise, we found, no, it's a factory is okay. Problem is at the head office. Because unless the head office costs are also loaded to the yogurt. So head office is, factory is making profit. Head office is making, sometimes it's loss making. So then that's kind of eye-opening is also there. So contribution, you can see what is the contribution margin, like that. That is the cost, the final outcome sheet, as a sheet. For every product, we can have a kind of a sheet like that. So we can assess all the cost if we want to manage cost. So this is the performance budget. Budgeting is also a problem because as our studies, our research, budgeting is just sometimes a ritual activity, especially in the government, just a ritual. Even in the the private organizations, most cases, budget sometimes may not properly work. But under the ABC, when we identify these activities, we can see what is the activity time and how many activities are performed for a year. And even we can have a comparison between these two. Last year, also this year, it may be similar or may be different. And the total time required. And this is the calculation of, we can have this per unit operating cost of the particular division. It's every minute is 6 rupees 82 cents cost. Like that, for every unit of the organization, we can see that unit in the sense activity area. This is a regional office. This regional office, to operate the regional office, they incur 6 rupees 82 cents per minute. So every minute is 6 rupees 82 cents based on its electricity, salaries, and rent and everything. 6 rupees 82 cents based on the activities they perform. Actually, this is the activity time, not the capacity-based figure. Based on the activity they perform, activity time, 1 minute is 6 rupees 82 cents. Accordingly, we can see the cost per year. So this is the budget. So it shows how much of the cost is incurred by this division. Therefore, head office can allocate, this is the amount of the budget allocation can be given to this particular unit. So very rationally, they can decide, the head office can decide how much of a budget can be given to the particular unit. So then that is another advantage. And also, it shows per unit cost, because if the volume is coming down, incurring same cost, per unit cost will go up. So per activity cost, so that's an indicator of performance. If a certain unit is doing less of activities, incurring same cost or higher cost, per unit will go up. That clearly indicates inefficiency. So therefore, we can manage efficiencies of activities and divisions. That's why some managers may not be that much happy to have this kind of an exercise, unless they are growth-oriented. So then actually, the other thing is that you may think, okay, how can we calculate what is the link, how can calculate this cost? What I found was that it is based on normal, very simple financial budget. Every organization has a financial budget. It shows various expenditures, rent, rates, salaries, electricity, water, like that. These are like all items. They have this expenditure means their budget for the period. So then what we can do under this exercise, we identify various major divisions in the area, and we have to allocate this annual expenditure among all these units. So we get the total allocation for each unit. And then we divide it by number of hours, like that we will come to the figure. That is the figure we get here is 6 rupees 82 cents for this regional office. So regional office, we get the financial budget allocation based on the space, floor space, and number of people employed, like that rational base we have to allocate. That amount has to be allocated among minutes. Very simple.